In today's video, we are seeing if we can make our own DIY kinetic sand and if we can make some interesting textures of it too. Guys, we have kinetic sand.
We've used this a little bit before. We've done a couple experiments with it. We tried casting gallium in it. If you've never played with this stuff before, it is sand mixed with a fun polymer, and it stretches and compresses and oozes. And
I've seen this stuff because I love those, satisfied videos and challenges and all that stuff. I have never actually played with it in my life. Okay, it's actually harder than I thought it was gonna be.
Oh well, especially coming out of the container when it hasn't been like broken up. Once you've broken it up and played with it for a bit, it gets a little more lightweight and spongy airy.
I suddenly understand the internet.
All of it, or just the part that does these satisfying videos?
I think I'm happy enough. I understand all of the internet right now.
Wow, been a very revelatory 20 seconds for you, huh?
Here's the basic idea. We have lots of different kinds of sand, we have lots of different things to add to it, and we have some commercially available kinetic sand. Can we make our sand exactly the same, or can we make it different in any way and still have it be fun? I also expected it to be slimier or to be goopy. Like, there's a lot of words that I could have used to describe what I thought this was gonna be like.
Feels like dry sand. It just doesn't behave like dry sand.
I'm so happy. It's so fluffy. So fluffy, I'm gonna die.
It's so fluffy, I'm gonna die.
I got this because we needed a control to test our DIY kinetic sand today. I found several different recipes online. I found one that says it works the best, or it behaves the most like store-bought kinetic sand. I didn't know what that meant, so I trusted it and I got the ingredients for it. I got to work and Nate said, well, that's not the same one I saw. So we don't know if this particular concoction is going to work the same as regular kinetic sand, but I want to find out. I also want to try a few different things with it. We also have some highlighter pens today because they fluoresce brilliantly under a black light. I want to see if we can make fluorescing kinetic sand. I want to see if we can make glow-in-the-dark kinetic sand, and then this is the one Nate's happiest about. It's glitter. Can we make glittery kinetic sand?
Yeah, glitter.
But if you don't want to handle that one, I got these. These are called micro beads.
Yeah.
You can get them at most craft stores, but they're not beads. You can't string them on anything. They're not sticky. They're not in a glue. They're just tiny little beads, and I love them. I think they're really cool. Just depends on what you want to do with them. We want to make our own kinetic sand. So went to a couple stores, picked up a few things. Dish soap and cornstarch. Now, according to the recipes I've seen online, these are basically the two ingredients plus sand that you need to make a DIY kinetic sand that's most like the stuff that you buy in stores. I don't know if that's true, but I want to find out. All right, so the recipe that I found is from onelittleproject.com, and it looks like it's gonna work pretty great. So it calls for 6 cups of sand, 1.5 cups of cornstarch, and 2 teaspoons of dish soap, along with some water.
6 cups of sand is a fair amount. Yeah, I think 2 cups should be plenty for testing this out.
Yeah, we'll try 2, especially because with the colors.
With the instructions, does it say mix the other ingredients and then add the sand?
Yes, so it's actually the sand and the cornstarch mixed together, and then you mix the water and the dish soap together, and then you combine the 2. And I did try and find the finest grit sand that I could. And this is from Hobby Lobby. It's just a sort of a decorative sand, but if you look at this, it's like powder soft. And when I compare it to the store-bought kinetic sand, and this is the craft store super fine decorative sand that I found, hoping they're gonna work about the same. Nate was questioning when I came into the studio today with only these ingredients, and now I'm starting to agree. This doesn't seem like only these things are gonna make this, but let's find out. Okay, I see what this recipe was saying now. This is incredibly soft, and it does pack and form very similarly to how this store-bought stuff is, but the store-bought stuff has this stretchy element, and that's not something that I'm getting with this. Like, yes, it's packable about the same. It's very soft, similar consistency, but it's not.
It doesn't do like the stretching.
The stretch
thing.
that we
It just
want.
kind of falls apart.
It's also sticking to my hand. So this recipe, while very fun, a good sensory experience, I'm gonna go ahead and say this isn't really what we were looking for. So I'm gonna mess with it a little bit, add a little bit more cornstarch, and we're gonna try a different recipe. It's much softer because it's bubbly from the soap. But check this out. It's still ripping, but you can get that. That's starting to move a little bit more. So it's close. It still doesn't have that same stickiness. That's what we want. And there's our difference. You squish yours and that kind of looks like a break. This one squishes and it just sort of looks like it.
Does that like
apart.
strange
Yeah.
cell opening?
All right, so I'm not gonna say that this one is a bust. OneLittleProject.com is not wrong. This makes stuff that is very, very similar to kinetic sand. It's the same soft texture, it does pack well, but we really want that elasticity that you find in the commercial stuff. So Nate has another idea.
In the past, we have made magnetic slime by using Elmer's glue, and this is just liquid starch for laundry, clothing starch. And we just mixed approximately equal portions of those, and we got sort of a putty that was a lot like silly putty, but a little bit thinner. I think that's what we want to try. So we're gonna mix up some of that, and then once we have a good consistency, we're going to add sand into it. This right here, this was just 1 tablespoon of glue and 1 tablespoon of starch. And I think maybe it should be a little bit less starch, but last time I made this, it turned out so sticky until I added additional starch to it that I wanted to just kind of start at that point where it wasn't going to be super sticky and unable to work it without it sticking to my hands everywhere. So this, I think, is what we're going to try adding sand to now. I suspect we're gonna end up needing like all of this sand.
For that, really?
Yeah, because what we
Okay.
need to do is just mix and mix and mix, and every particle of sand basically needs to get coated in this stuff. And so it's gonna take a lot of mixing and kneading.
All right, so here's what we're trying now. This mixture, way too dry. This is the cornstarch and water and dish soap. These ones that we have here, this is glue and clothing starch. Nate's one that he has here is pretty close visually, but it's still a little too sticky, it's too elastic. We need something in between. So we're changing up the way we're mixing. We're gonna mix glue. It looks like he's going glue and starch. I'm actually gonna go glue, then mix in the sand and try little drops of starch at a time to see if I can get it right.
All right, I think we have stumbled upon a pretty good recipe. This
Nate
right
has
here,
figured this out.
this, I mean, look at this. Squishes together, holds its shape, but you pick it up and it breaks apart in pretty much the exact same way
Glorious.
as the store-bought stuff. Our cameraman decided like, hey, we've got this bowl of the other kind of stuff. What happens when we mix that with this stuff? And it worked like better than just the starch and glue. So I was like, all right, let's try all the ingredients. So here's the ingredients we got to get to this point. I started out with 1 teaspoon of water. I added about 5 drops of dish soap. I then added 1 teaspoon of cornstarch. Then I added 2 teaspoons of white Elmer's glue, and I mixed all of those ingredients together. After they were nicely mixed together, I took my teaspoon and I put in, I think I filled it about 1/4 of the way. If I had a 1/4 teaspoon, I would have used that. I can't find one, but I filled it about 1/4 and I poured about half of that in. So about 1/8 of a teaspoon, I poured into the rest of the white goop. I mixed that up. It kind of gooed together like a slime. And then I started adding sand, and I just shook in some sand, maybe 1/4, half a cup, something like that. And I started mixing it, and it was still kind of clumpy, like it broke apart. It was like crumbly. Some bits stuck together, but not all of it. So then I added the rest of that 1/4 teaspoon of starch. So in total, I had about 1/4 teaspoon of our liquid laundry starch. And once I added that second half, the rest of that 1/4 teaspoon, when I stirred it together, it started gooping all together all at once, like all of the sand. There wasn't lots of little clumps, it was just one clump that I was stirring around. So at that point, I started adding more and more sand, and that got me to this point. I will say, it doesn't feel 100% the same.
We don't have the granules exactly the same.
It's not the same grain size, and this feels like it can compress more, like it's a little bit denser. So
Everything that we've got happening today is very fluffy.
yeah, they're probably using a much more synthetic type of rubbery compound than we are, but the result is very similar. You can squish it together, it holds its shape, and then as you start to break it up, you get that weirdly organic, spreading, full of holes, stringy, holding together stuff. So now we've got this recipe that seems to be working pretty well. I'm gonna try a variation on that. We've got the little beads that Callie got. I'm gonna pour all of those out out, and then I'm gonna try this recipe with beads. And the beads are way, way larger than the individual grains of sand. So we don't really know how it's gonna behave.
While he does that, I'm gonna mix half of what he's already got here with some highlighter ink. We wanna see if we can make it fluoresce under a black light. Yes.
It's collapsing. The beads do not hold themselves together quite as well as sand.
So what I'm gonna do with this white is I have a different way of making it glow. So this is glow glitter. Not only does it never come off, but you will see it night or day. It's the worst of all worlds, and I'm thrilled.
You're the devil.
Guys, homemade kinetic sand, absolutely doable. Adding your own stuff to the kinetic sand, also absolutely doable. Only do it if your friends really like you and aren't gonna hate you forever for doing this. Guys, that's not all. You know we've always got more for you to see. Hit that box up at the top for our most recent video, and we'll see you in the next one. Talk to you then.